There is a hosta in this garden that came up wrong this spring. Last year, it was a waist-high fountain of blue, wide as a bicycle wheel, the kind of plant a person stops and looks at. This April, it opened to barely half that. Same crown, same soil, same corner it has held for 9 years. Nothing moved it and nothing dug it up. And the reason it shrank has almost nothing to do with this spring. It happened last August, on a warm, quiet afternoon, when someone stood over it with a clean pair of shears and did the one thing that felt the most responsible. She tidied it up. That is the mistake this whole video is built around, and by the end, you will be able to walk out to your own hostas in the next few weeks and know exactly what to touch and what to leave alone. Because there are 2 things you actually should be cutting right now, and I will show you both. There is one date that decides the timing of every job on this list, and you will not find it on any nursery tag because it belongs to your yard alone. And there is a famous hosta trick, one that half the gardening internet swears by, that does almost nothing for the plant. Here is what happens in August. The leaves start to look tired, the edges brown, a few get chewed. The whole clump loses its crisp spring shape and starts to sprawl. And every instinct a good gardener has says the same thing. Clean it up, cut it back. So the shears come out, the foliage comes off, and the bed looks neat again by dinner. It feels like care. It is the opposite. Because a green hosta leaf in late summer is not decoration. It is a solar panel, and it is still running. All through late summer and into fall, those leaves pull in light and make sugars, and then send those sugars down into the crown, the dense knot of growing points at the base of the plant. That stored energy is what builds next year's plant. It is what decides how many shoots come up in April and how big each one gets. So when you cut a hosta down in August, while the leaves are still working, you are not tidying it. You are reaching in and spending next spring's plant before it is even made. The one that came up half-size did not have a bad spring. It was robbed the August before. Once you see that, you cannot unsee it, and it quietly reorganizes everything you do out there for the rest of the season. That plain version of why plants do what they do is the whole reason this channel exists. If that is what you are here for, take 1 second and subscribe, and the next one will find you. So let us put it to work, starting with the 2 things you actually should be cutting, because I do not want you standing frozen over the bed afraid to touch anything. The first is the flower stalks. Once a hosta's blooms have faded and gone brown, you can cut that whole tall stalk, the scape, right down at its base. This one is genuinely fine to remove, and here is the honest reason, because it is not the one you usually hear. You will read everywhere that cutting the scapes sends energy back into the plant and gives you a noticeably bigger hosta. That is the famous trick, and the truth is thinner. If you leave spent flowers on, some hostas will try to set seed, and making seed does pull energy away from the plant. So cutting the scape stops that one drain. But the bigger promise, that deadheading alone transforms the size of the plant, is not well supported, and plenty of experienced growers who have tried it both ways see no real difference. So cut the scapes if you want a tidy plant and you want to stop seeding. Just do it for the right reason, and do not expect a miracle. And there is one exception, so stay with me. There is a whole group of hostas grown specifically for their flowers, the old-fashioned fragrant kind, descended from Hosta plantaginea, with big, pure white trumpet blooms that open in late summer and carry a real perfume across the yard in the evening. On those, the flowers are the entire point. The classic is a variety called Royal Standard, an old, tough hosta with glossy green leaves and those fragrant white flowers in August and September. It is one of the easier ones to find. A grower like the Tree Center lists a #1 gallon Royal Standard online for around $30. On a plant like that, you do not rush to cut the scapes. You let it bloom, you let it do the one thing you grew it for, and you deadhead only after the show is over. So the rule bends. Most hostas, the flowers are a bonus. The fragrant ones, the flowers are the reason. The second thing you can safely cut is any single leaf that is truly destroyed. Not tired, not spotted, not a little ragged along one edge. Destroyed. Collapsed, more brown than green. Those leaves have stopped contributing, and you can snip them off at the base without hurting anything. But notice the difference, because this is the whole game. Removing one dead leaf is not the same as cutting the plant down. The rule to carry in your head for the rest of this video is simple. If there is still green on it, it is still working. Leave it be. Which brings us to that date I promised, the one that runs everything. It is your first hard frost. Not the first light frost, not the first cool night, but the first real freeze that comes in and blackens the tops. Every gardener has a rough date for this, and if you do not know yours, look it up for your town and write it on the calendar, because from here on, everything hangs off it. Up through the northern tier, through Minnesota and the border country, your date might land in late September or early October, and your whole hosta calendar runs early. Down through the southeast Georgia, the Carolinas, that freeze may not arrive until well into November, and yours runs late. Same plant, same tasks, completely different timing, and the calendar on the wall cannot tell you which is right. Only your frost date can. Working back from it, here is the first thing that should already be behind you. Feeding. If you are still reaching for fertilizer in August, stop. The window to feed hostas closes in the middle of summer, and the standard guidance from university extension offices is to stop by late July. The reason is timing. A dose of nitrogen late in the season pushes out soft new leaves, and that tender growth has no time to firm up before the cold comes, so the frost kills it, and the plant wasted the energy making it. Feeding in August does not help a hosta get ready for winter. It does the reverse. The thing that does still matter in the heat is water, and this is where an old idea gets people into trouble. Everyone knows hostas are shade plants, so people assume they are tough and low water. They are not. A hosta tolerates shade. It does not tolerate drought. Those are two different things. Under the trees in August, competing with tree roots for every drop, a hosta can dry out fast, and it will tell you. The leaf edges go brown and crisp. First the tips, then a widening scorched margin working inward. The whole plant flags in the afternoon heat. Push it far enough and it shuts down early and goes dormant weeks ahead of schedule. So through the hot weeks, give them a deep soak. Something like 1 to 1.5 inches of water a week, deeply and less often, rather than a daily sprinkle. Water at the base, not over the leaves, because wet foliage overnight invites disease, and on the blue varieties overhead, water slowly washes away part of what makes them blue. And this is where that same green leaf rule earns its keep, because in August, a hosta tells you what is wrong with it if you can read the damage. Ragged holes chewed through the middle, with a faint slime trail in the morning, that is slugs. Brown crispy edges mean scorch, too much sun or too little water. Leaves shredded top to bottom all at once usually means a hard rain or hail came through. Whole leaves bitten off to stubs overnight, that is deer, and no hosta is truly safe from them. But read every one of those against the same question. Is there still green on the leaf? Chewed, but still mostly green, you leave it, because it is still feeding the crown right up until frost. You take off only the ones that are genuinely finished. You are reading the plant, not reacting to it. Two honest things while we are here, so you do not blame yourself for what is not your fault. If a hosta browns out early in a brutal hot dry spell and looks half dead by late August, it is very likely just gone dormant early to protect itself. The crown underground is alive and will come back next spring as if nothing happened. And if you garden down south in real heat, your blue hostas will lose that blue and turn greenish by midsummer no matter what you do, because the blue is a fine, waxy coating that southern heat and sun simply melt off. That is not a fault in your care. That is geography, and no amount of water fixes it. If a blue hosta scorches in a hot, exposed spot, more water will not solve a light problem. The real fix is moving it to more shade, and that is a job for cool weather, not the middle of an August heat wave. So when does the big cleanup finally happen? After that hard frost, the one we anchored everything to. Once a real freeze has turned the foliage yellow and then to mush, the leaves have finished their job, the sugars are down in the crown, and now you can cut the whole plant back to about 2 inches above the ground with a clear conscience. This is the cutback that August wanted from you, done at the moment when it costs the plant nothing. And now there is a real reason to do it, beyond neatness. That collapsing pile of dead hosta leaves is prime winter shelter for slugs to lay their eggs in, tucked down in the cool, damp debris against the crown, ready to hatch out hungry in spring. Clearing it away takes their nursery with it, and means fewer holes next year. It also lifts away any diseased foliage, so it is not sitting there over winter waiting to reinfect the plant. One caution, because the internet loves to make this a hard rule, and it is not. If you garden somewhere with brutal winters and little snow cover, leaving the dead foliage standing can actually insulate the crown through the freezing and thawing. So cutting back after frost is the right move for most people in most places, especially if slugs or disease were a problem. But in the coldest zones, leaving it up as a blanket and cleaning up in spring is a perfectly good choice too. One small tool habit that costs nothing and saves grief. Whenever you are cutting across a lot of hostas at once, wipe your blade with rubbing alcohol between plants. There is a virus specific to hostas that spreads through sap on a dirty blade, moving from a cut on a sick plant to a cut on a healthy one, and it has no cure. Clean the blade between plants, and you shut that door. 30 seconds of habit protects a whole bed. And one last thing for the calendar, because late August into September is good for more than cleanup. It is the second best time of the whole year to divide hostas, right behind early spring. The soil is still warm, which pushes fast root growth. The air has finally cooled so the divisions are not gasping, and you can see exactly how big each clump got this year. If you split them now, mulch the new divisions well going into winter, so the freezing and thawing does not heave them out of the ground. But the how and the where of splitting a clump is a whole video of its own, and I will make it. So walk back out to that bed with new eyes, the tired, chewed, sprawling hostas that every instinct says to cut down. Leave the green ones standing, cut the spent flower stalks if you like, and leave them on the fragrant ones. Snip off only the leaves that are truly finished. Wait for the frost for the real cutback. And through all of it, let every working leaf keep feeding the crown, because that is next spring being built right in front of you, one quiet August day at a time. The hosta that came up half-size taught its owner that the hard way. Yours does not have to. Tell me one thing down in the comments. What zone are you gardening in, and when does your first hard frost usually hit? I want to see the spread, from the early frost folks up north to the ones still cutting flowers in November, because that one date changes everything you just heard. Drop it below, and if this was useful, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.